You have to be very careful before you start the company. A lot of the business owners have a passion about something they want to develop or run. And then this very sad statistics that like in 5 years of running a company, like 50%, even more, fail. And that's mainly because lack of finance and not doing a good research about the market, about the needs, not having a financial and business plan before.
Hello and welcome to the Gross Profit Podcast. My name is James Kennedy, CEO and co-founder at procurementexpress.com. We take the hassle out of managing SMB spend without buying an ERP. Today, I'm joined by Hillel Steiner from Profit Up Financials, is based in Israel, and we share a common passion for what is it? Working with Americans. So both Hillel and myself love working with people in the US, and there are certain cultural reasons for that, I would say. And we're going to have a chat today about what the business environment is like in Israel, the pros and cons, in the US, pros and cons, and why, if you are a US-based business, perhaps you need to consider some of the pros available from Israeli resources like Hillel. So Hillel, you're very welcome to the Gross Profit Podcast. Maybe you can kick us off by telling us something about you that not many people know.
Yeah, I started my career in a pretty later age. I went to college only when I was 27. I started. That's one thing about my career. Another thing, interesting, in the last 2 years, I read over 60 books.
In the last few years, you left over 60 what?
In the last 2 years, I read over 60 books.
60 books. Okay, interesting. You're an avid reader then. So what's the best book you've read in the last 2 years, would you say, or which one really stuck out to you?
Yeah, so I'll tell you something interesting. I got to the conclusion the last month, maybe. I'm stopping reading books. I'm starting to implement them. Because reading without implementing doesn't do anything. So I decided to take 2 books, one on self-development, another one on marketing. The one on self-development is The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. And the second one, the marketing one, is Lean Marketing by Alan Dibb. Very good books, practical books. And I'm planning to read page by page and document it and implement it. Otherwise, reading without implementing doesn't work so much.
That's interesting. I think I have a shared experience there. Definitely early in my business career, I was reading loads of books. I get excited about it and then I get bored with it and move on to the next thing and skim across the top of all these books. But you've actually got to do the boring work. I think there's an enthusiasm curve sometimes with these books, right? You read the book, you think, oh, this is the best thing ever. And then there's the sort of phase where you have to do some work and it's, oh, that's less interesting. Let me pick another book.
Yeah, and it becomes overwhelming. So many ideas and methods. You just have to pick 1 or 2 good books and just implement them.
Yeah, very good. And okay, I'm wholeheartedly on board with that. You have to go deep. The way we describe it, you got to be the general and then you got to be the soldier. So the general gets to pick the book and then the soldier has to execute it and you don't get a choice. You just got
to do both.
Wait until it's finished. Yeah, I love that. Okay, so let's establish some credibility for you here, Hillel. Why should we listen to you when it comes to giving our business advice? Tell us a bit about your background.
Yeah, I'll start with my background. So I started like 18 years ago as a bookkeeper in Israel. I got my certificate as a bookkeeper. I worked for 2 years. Then that's why I have a lot of experience in bookkeeping as well. And after that, I went to college and I learned accounting and system information. And then I got my CPA license. After that, I started working for Deloitte. I was there for 5 years, working mainly on small companies, tech companies involved in their budgets, everything, not only audit, helping them build their, all of the budgets and forecasts and cash flow predictions and all of the stuff like that. And I like to get the whole picture, and that's why I like working with small companies. I'll just continue. At the same time, I got my MBA and financial management. After that, I worked for several companies as a controller and still dealing with a lot of budgeting and forecasting, preparing all of the whatever the owners need to see. I got, again, a lot of experience of that. And recently, 2 years ago, I started my own practice as a fractional CFO, providing high-level financial services, whatever tailored to the specific needs of each company. That's why I pick my clients usually, and I don't take too many clients. They gain a lot of, and the main thing is financial clarity for them to make smarter decisions, boost their revenue, their profitability, and grow and grow.
Very good. Okay, so I feel like when you do an MBA, you're a qualified business nerd. I'm just an amateur business nerd. I've never got the qualification to back it up, but I share that interest in it. Now, MBAs are controversial, certainly in the US, I think. Like they're like viewed as some people, especially in the tech bros, the Silicon Valley, they don't really appreciate the MBA qualification. So what was your takeaway? Are you glad you did it? Would you recommend that other people do the MBA? Where did you do it? And what was the biggest takeaway? What did you learn from it?
I did it at the Hebrew University. It's one of probably the best university in Israel, and also high rated in the world. And it's a very professional university. The main takeaway from there is dealing with data and organizing it. I learned several courses, but a lot of FP&A, financial planning and analysis, it was a big part of it. And that's where I gained a lot of experience as well, working also on companies, actual companies, doing demos, and also in real life. I gained a lot from that.
Okay, very good. All right. So you sounds like you would recommend it. And you've touched a little bit upon there on Israel and American. I guess what we both share is we love working with Americans, right? So my first quote unquote real customer, let's say a customer that we didn't already know, was Bryce from Holloman Corporation out in Texas. Very clearly remember the day he gave me a credit card, and that's what started our business. And since then, I've been in love with working with Americans because they just make decisions and move on. But maybe we could talk a bit about what's the business environment like to do business in Israel, and how does it compare to, say, the US?
Yeah, I'll divide it to two answers. First of all, the US smaller businesses are more, and the owners understand better in business. That's what I see. And the more in the mode of development, again, and growing. And that's where I think I give my added value. And that's on one side. On the other hand, it's a disadvantage. It's the bookkeeping. The bookkeeping in Israel, in order to be a bookkeeper, you have to be certified. Not in place, you have certified, and then you could work as a bookkeeper. In America, some business owners just take their wife or their sister-in-law to do bookkeeping, just to record all of the financials. And then sometimes it's a big mess. Not always. Sometimes it's very organized, but sometimes a lot of cleanup has to be made. But there's one advantage in that, very interesting insight. Since the Israeli bookkeepers are very dedicated only to the numbers, they do it in a technical way. While in America, although some of them are not certified, but just look more like in a wide perspective in the business, how it fits the business. So that's why I really like working with American small companies.
Interesting. So what I heard there was, first of all, we all know that America is very entrepreneurial, and oftentimes they make the parachute on the way down, as they say. So they worry about getting revenue in and worry about everything else afterwards, which is not a bad approach maybe. But in Israel, it's a bit more structured, and people are building their business in a more structured way. Now, the counterintuitive thing there is that Israel is known for innovation, right? So we have this idea that you can't be innovative unless you're just faking it till you make it, and you're just rolling out and just basically figuring out the customers and figuring out everything else afterwards. And yet Israel has a lot of innovation. It's famous for its business innovation, especially in tech, because it sounds like they're full of red tape, if I was to hear it the other way, a lot of admin. But how are they still succeeding if there's a lot of the slower approach? How does that work?
Yeah, so I saw it a lot when I worked at Deloitte. And these companies focus more on innovation, but they neglect a little the finance, how to get this. I remember a small company started as a very small, now they're very big. They're going to be traded in the NASDAQ in a few months, I think, or in a year. The CFO wasn't certified. He's a developer, and he made a whole bookkeeping system, but it failed because he wasn't there. He didn't didn't know exactly how to do this stuff, but that's what I see. The innovation is in a specific thing that they invent or find, but they don't focus on the finance side. And that's where the fractional CFO should be coming in. So in America, I see it much more that smaller companies do understand the need of a fractional CFO, and I really see and I appreciate it more. I believe it's going to come to everywhere in the world. Like each company who has a bookkeeper will have in a few years also a fractional CFO. The insights you could get from the numbers and the strategy is amazing. You could see a big difference between a company who has a fractional CFO or CFO, depends on the size, and a company who doesn't have, they have only, a bunch of numbers, they have no insights. The numbers, when you have a good clean bookkeeping, it's a gold mine. You have,
Right.
you have what to be based on, and to get smarter decisions, you just have to have somebody who will know how to deal with it and to move it on from there.
Yeah. Okay. So I see. Let's draw that analogy out a bit further then in that. So it can happen that if you're just focusing on the top line and the customers, basically the finance becomes nothing more than compliance. You're just trying to stay out of jail. It's not really built into how you think about the business from the ground. And let's face it, a powerful finance function, it can be a powerful multiplier on the success of a business, but it's maybe something undervalued by a lot of folks. And I think that's 100% true. I think hiring a fractional CFO is the most powerful hire you can make over a certain amount of revenue. And I see it. It's interesting to hear this different cultural approach here. So tell me a bit about talking about the finance side of getting a business going, what are some mistakes that you see people make when they're starting their business with regard to funding?
So I'll tell you two things. For the short one is the focus on revenue, although that's the engine of the company, instead of focusing on profit and even more on cash flow. That's one thing. They get it in the next 3 years, they understand it. But revenue it means a lot, but it's not the bottom line. That's one thing. The other thing regarding the funding, I find out that entrepreneurs, and when they start, they dream to have a company without debt and without any investors' equity. They want to build a company that they could just get and grow the company through customers to start the company and to grow the company. It happens. I did see it for some companies, but for most companies it doesn't work. They run through a loop. They can't hire people because they don't have enough revenue, and then they can develop the company because they don't have enough stuff. And that's where I do recommend for entrepreneurs to think about seriously, or using savings in a conservative way, or to take a loan, or to bring investors. But each one has the cons, the advantages. But to rely only on customers in the beginning, you could try it, but then after a few years, you'll see you're not going to get so far.
Yeah, okay. You're talking to someone who did just rely on customers, certainly, for the first 18 months, I think, 2 years, maybe. And it was good because it got some market proof, right? It wasn't sustainable. I was using whatever, we were working part-time and extra time and, had other revenue sources to keep us going. And then when we chose to raise some money and we raised an angel round, thank you, angels, if anyone's listening, really, we almost never touched the cash, but it changed the way we were able to commit to the business. So
but you also did. You funded the company through investor.
Yeah, we took angels. In our case, we just basically barely. What the important thing of the first money, it wasn't enough to live off or anything like that, but it validated. So someone actually would pay. The risk on the other side of it is that you raise money without a customer, and then there's much bigger risk there, maybe because you don't know whether anyone's going to pay.
That's why you have to be very careful before you start the company. That's what I see. A lot of the business owners have a passion about something they want to develop or run, and then that's very sad statistics that like in 5 years of running a company, like 50% more or less, even more, fail. And that's mainly because lack of finance and not doing a good research about the market, about the needs, and not having a financial and business plan before.
Yeah, this is interesting because this is an interesting dynamic between the finance department and let's call it sales. That's what it is, right? Sales are just go get them. Finance is hold on, think about this, think about that. If you have if you're too much conservatism, let's call it, or if you're too much trying to make the business model perfect, then it's a totally different skill set to bring in the revenue and to design the ability to scale. It's almost, I've never seen it in one person. It just doesn't exist in one person that I've ever seen. You need that two people. You need the sales, the revenue generator, and then you need the person who can put the financial plan around that. Maybe you'd never do anything if you just listen to the financial plan. Sometimes things look very good on paper, but there's no reality to it. It's not till someone goes and sells something that you hydrate that plan with reality. So it's that mix, which is hard to get right.
You have to work. The financials must be based on the operations. You can't divide them and just, otherwise the financial plan is only a theory. And it's very interesting what you spoke about. We talked about taking risks. Today I'm publishing a post on LinkedIn. Today we are recording publishing on LinkedIn a post about taking risks, and that a lot of financial planners also they want to be very conservative. They want to keep safe, and they suggest they give the business owners, the most conservative scenario. And now this, a lot of times, it stops businesses from growing. You have to take thoughtful risk in some sort of way to thrive. There's no chance you can't survive, you can't get big without taking some sort of risk. And that's why I suggest always to build a few scenarios: optimistic, realistic, and pessimistic. And then you tweak it between. You think you're bidding in a few projects and you want to get one, but if you're gonna win the project, you have to hire more staff. But if you don't hire on time, so you can't deliver whatever you're gonna promise to deliver. So maybe you have to start the process of hiring before. So that's the risk. You have to be, realistic, not too conservative. That's what I believe. And the financial advisor, the fractional CFO, doesn't decide. He just brings the scenarios and he helps in a way the advice and to the owner, and he takes the decision in the end. He makes the decision.
Yeah, and risk is seen as it's a valuable commodity. If you have an opportunity for risk, people with capital and looking at 5% or 4% or 3% in the bank, they understand, okay, if I want to get a better return, I need some risk. So it's actually a commodity that they need. So if you're able to explain the risks involved, you might think risk is a bad thing, but actually, if you have capital, you're looking for a bit of risk, because sometimes it's in balancing out your portfolio. You just understand you might be just naturally open to risk and you're ready for it. So I think reframing, I used to think of risk as only a bad thing, but actually it's a valuable thing, where investors come in. You can say, okay, you've got a ton of cash, I've got some risk. If you want to swap here, that's good for me. So I like that idea.
Absolutely.
You've got a case study, I guess. I love to talk about people's actual work experience and their kind of favorite turnaround stories, if you like, because it really shines a light on what you're able to do for a business. So you've got a case study about a business that was struggling, apparently doing turnover like we're talking about, but no profits, and you were able to help them.
It started, I was dealing with a BI company, business intelligence company, who was providing a lot of different kinds of services to different kinds of clients. But even though they're business intelligence, they had all of the tools to know and to analyze, they looked at the revenue and the expenses as one source. Now, without knowing the profitability of each source, of each stream. When I came in, what I did is, first of all, we sat down with the owners and the other higher level people in the company, how to divide the different kinds of services. Not to do it too wide, not to give dozens of services, then you get too lost. To define 4 or 5 services in the industry. And what we saw is that they had also automation and also writing codes and also support. We saw that the support side wasn't profitable at all. They were losing money. They were leaking money. That's why they weren't profitable, although they had a lot of revenue. So once we saw that, we realized that we didn't just drop the support, because the support is integral, is part of the company. You can't provide, most of the time, you can't provide services without providing the support, the customer support.
Okay, so this didn't go to a direction I thought it was going to go, because support is normally not a huge cost. It's not a huge cost in our business. business, but were they just over investing in the support team that they had? And
Yeah,
what
it
they
wasn't
needed so
efficient.
much
It
investment?
wasn't efficient. They had a lot of team support, and instead of the people who worked on developing and delivering, they will also be able to support in a way. That's what we did. We left. They had to fire a few support people, and then we changed the model, and the customers were much happier to talk with the person who developed whatever they got, to get the support from them and not from another person. That's one thing. They were much happier. And second, we're able to cut costs, and then also the support part of the company was also profitable.
So what I heard there was you actually cut out the middleman. You put the developers in connection with the customers. That got a faster turnaround for the customer. Turns out the middle layer wasn't needed.
That works for smaller companies. Larger companies do need the customer success, that team, but the smaller companies, the developers and the people who deliver the product, the service, could help a lot of times also with the support part, and it makes things much faster also.
Okay. So let me ask the one question everyone's thinking about now. Is, okay, you improved profit. So when profitability went from zero or negative, and how much profit were you able to create?
It was about the profit when, like in 6 months, it raised in 20%.
12%. Okay. All right. And on a multi-million dollar
20.
business.
Yeah, it was a lot of money.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. All right. Very interesting. It's common to hear that story, but actually for a software business like mine, I'm thinking my own business now. I'm thinking, okay, that makes sense because it's very hard for a software business. There's a lot of overhead cost just in maintenance and then not splitting out properly, like the engineering effort or custom work for people. It's actually awkward to do because the people on that side of the business are not used to managing finances or even thinking about it, whether you're doing a piece of custom work for someone or you're just helping them. They don't have a separation in their mind. Because it sounded like were you timesheeting the engineers? Like, how did you discover this problem?
I just saw there's a lot of mainly by the time that every worker, every employee put in the hours. I saw a lot of hours on support, and the money, the rate they received, they got from the customers was lower. It didn't make any sense. That's where I came in and helped them make the change.
So were these full-time employees, but they were still using a timesheet?
Yeah, they were still using a timesheet, but less employees. They didn't need so many and less time. They saved a lot of time by very interesting story, and that's what saved the company.
Timesheeting is not something that full-time employees in a lot of companies use, certainly in Ireland or the US that I'm aware of. Is it common in Israel because I know in certain places in Germany, actually, there's a mandate that even if you have full-time employees, I think the government mandates that you still timesheet?
Yeah, no, it's for business purposes. They want to know on each project how much time was used to learn from that.
Yeah.
There's so much data you could gain from the numbers, not only from the bookkeeping and the accounting part, also from the operational part. How much time for each project? So that's where you find out each project and each segment or kind of service is profitable or not. And that's where you have to. That's why I wanted to continue from before. We basically built a P&L report for each service. We had to allocate also the overhead to these kind of, let's say, rent to these kind of services. We had to do some sort of allocation, but at the end we got a P&L for each kind of service. It's amazing where you could improve, where you could cut costs, where you could make more money.
Very good. All right. I just imagine the chaos involved if I started asking everyone to timesheet, but maybe I need to do it.
It could be very simple. There's a lot of very cheap softwares, programs that you could just put any hours and track them in each project. It's very common. Also, I saw it in companies also in the US. They have to do it. Otherwise, they're not going to track their time on each project. They want to know.
Yeah. Makes sense. Makes sense when you say it out loud like that. Okay, so how can people get in touch with you? And I believe, do you have an offer for the listeners as well? Very well prepared.
Yeah, so let's start with the offer. So towards the 2025 year, I'm offering an exclusive opportunity for the first 3 service-based companies who have between 10 and 50 employees or subcontractors to have the first 3 who reach out to me I'll tell them the information, will receive from me very high level fractional CFO services for 2025 for 50% off. So not expensive.
50, read it, guys.
50% off for the entire 2025. They could reach me out on LinkedIn, write Hillel Steiner CPA or profitupfinancials.com or Hillel at profitupfinancials.com. And the first three will receive that, will be entitled to get this service. And it's that their opportunity to get clarity on the financials, grow the company, boost revenue and profit.
All right. Half an hour into the podcast, I normally have to give people some other sort of gift, if you like, but you've done it for us today. That's an insane deal. I love the fact that you're willing to make an offer, and that's cool. So we're just wrap it up then by asking my rinky-dink final question, which is, who is your business hero and why?
Yeah, my business hero is Warren Buffett, and I have a quote from him. I'll read it out because I really love it. The difference between a successful people and really successful people is that the really successful people say no to almost everything. You have to learn to say no. I believe in focusing, being focused. That means a lot of opportunities that you have that's not part of your vital, whatever you want to focus on, just say no. And I had it also in my career also. People that want a different kind of services that I don't like to provide, I just said no. For every no you say, you have the opportunity of other yeses. That's what I like about
that. Maybe it circles back to you picking 2 books instead of 60. You're deciding, I'm just going to do these things, and that's it.
Yeah, and I also suggested for business owners, start focusing on on one product when you start, and one service product go, and when you see it goes well, you move to the other one. Not to do everything at one time.
Very good. All right. Well, that was a pretty good offer. Thanks for that, and thank you for listening to the Gross Profit Podcast. Your special reward for going this deep with us is to be able to go to procurementexpress.com/partners, and there I have created a webinar on how I think a fractional CFO can explain their value in a way that a CEO would understand. However, Hillel, you've done a pretty good, at least you have an offer, which is the first step, right? So you've done something very attractive. It's got a call to action. It's got urgency. It's got a significant value. Sounds like thousands of dollars worth of value there.
I bring a lot of experience in this field.
Great. Yeah. Thanks very much for coming along, and thanks for listening. And Hillel, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you very much, James, for having me here and giving me the opportunity to express and share my knowledge and my offer.